Senator Metz.
I think this is a fair negotiated contract. I think the employees went, I believe, 6 years without any adjustment, and I think this is kind of a little helpful catch-up. It might not go far enough for some of us, but I would move that the LCC Subcommittee on Employee Relations approve the terms of the following negotiated agreements. That would be A, B, C, D, E, and F on the blue sheet.
Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I hope nobody's in too much of a hurry. I'm wondering if we could go into a little bit more detail.
It's a little hard to give you an exact amount because there is a little bit of compounding in there.
It seems fairly generous, and I think a few people cited that there were a few years that they didn't get increases. And I'm just wondering kind of the philosophy behind the negotiations, and I'm always curious. These seem very generous to me, and I think they would seem very generous to many of the people that I represented.
I appreciate the administration at least going in the right direction with the 5%. That's absolutely the right way to go. It's still well below the private sector average and even what local municipalities are doing and what their employees are doing. So it's the right direction, still some ground to make up there.
I think there's also recognition by the administration of the very important services that are provided by our state's workforce, and a feeling that they wanted to recognize that.
I appreciate that. It's very helpful to understand, because I feel it's my duty when I go back in my district and people have questions about these increases of 10, 12, 15%, that I can at least explain the rationale behind it. And
because I know some of us have those detailed questions and want to see what all the goodies add up to here, and we're trying to piece it together on the fly.
I question some of your phrasing, though, of goodies. I don't know that having lunch when you're away from your family on the road is necessarily a goodie, or having a cell phone to take a call at 10 o'clock at night might not be a goodie.
I agree with Senator Chamberlain. At least we have a start here of 5% being encumbered by the individual, which it's well overdue, and I see that as one glimmer of hope in really a bloated proposal here across the board. I'm curious, like Representative Pepin, I would like to kind of get a handle on what the total costs are here for the taxpayers under these very lucrative contracts. I think I came up with the help of my calculator, what the average salary increase would be in each of those bargaining units. MAPE was a $7,676 increase in salary. A 33% calculation in benefits amounts to $2,533 for a total compensation increase of $10,209 per employee.
But this is kind of the turn of discussions. I think been unfortunate. We started gathering information, but then when you talk about ASME employees, for one, who are making an average annual salary of $40,000 and calling that bloated or lucrative or filled with goodies, I just think we're creating really the wrong impression. Representative Pepin, you talked about your constituents wanting to understand. Well, I think when you throw around numbers like 15%, you're not giving them more understanding, you're giving them less understanding. The numbers show that we're talking about a biennial increase of less than 5%, which is less than 2.5% total per year that we're increasing. That's the salary that we're talking about, not 15%. So in addition to bringing up issues that don't properly belong in this forum, I think we're really disserving people who are not making lots of money. We should get on the business of giving people a little bit of decent salary increase that they can use after years of being flat. And, you know, members, it's important that we're honest with our constituents about what these numbers actually add up to.
You know, Minnesotans are going to see with these huge increases what happens when Democrats negotiate with Democrats. We are really creating, by doing this, these huge increases. Many of the employees in these groups will receive upwards of 13% increase in 2 years. That's unheard of in the private sector. And we are really creating two different Minnesotas. We're creating a Minnesota where employees of the government who are paid in Cadillac-type style are being funded by hardworking Minnesotans struggling to get by. And I really struggle with the direction we're going, and I encourage members to vote no.
Mr. Chair, I think it's outrageous the way that numbers are thrown around, that all of the folks are potentially going to get all of this money when the numbers are very clear. The idea that, frankly, public employee bashings continue is, I think, unfortunate. We have an obligation to make certain that our public employees feel like the legislature values the role that they play here in Minnesota. I think that these are reasonable, negotiated contracts, and I think we should approve them today.
This inflated numbers is, I find very offensive as a former state employee. They're asked to do more with less, and their compensation is not kept up to the point where they can't fill positions. People of Minnesota deserve quality services, and public employees provide them.
We're seeing lucrative contracts that are at amounts that are well beyond what happens in the private sector. We're going to see many employees, state employees in the state of Minnesota that are compensated at rates of over 20% increase in 4 years.
Mr. Hubinger, will you call the roll, please?
Representative Lilly?
Aye.
Representative Gosowski?
No.
Representative Hillstrom?
Aye.
Representative Pepin?
No.
Representative Winkler?
Aye.
Senator Benson? Absent. Senator Chamberlain? Absent. Senator Eaton?
Yes.
Senator Metzen?
Aye.
Senator Saxon? Absent.
With that, SCR 1 passes 5-2.
We passed the contract today for the state workers, and it's about people. It's about people that are doing the work every day for all of us and show up and do a good job and make Minnesota the great place that it is to live.